Hi, welcome back to the Django Rest Framework tutorial. Let's continue our discussion on serializer. In this point, we perform GET request. It means by default, API view carries only GET request, but we need to perform other requests like post, put, patch, and delete request. So in this discussion, we'll talk about how we are going to perform GET and post. So first of all, we'll go into the documentation of the Django Rest Framework. Under the documentation, go inside the tutorial and go to the serialization. Now we'll find all the process that we need to use for serialization. Already we created a serializer. Already we created a class under serializer. Now we are going to create a method. There are different methods are used under the serializer. These two methods are there. One is create and update. Create method will create a new record under the data set that we need to implement. So when we perform post request, that time the record is get created. So I'll copy this content and paste into our code. So I'll go back to the code and under the serializer.py, I'll copy the method over here. Once I copied the method, I need to modify certain things. So under the documentation, snippet model is used. For our coding, we are going to use from app1 dot models. I'm going to import the coder model. This particular coder model I'm used for this application. You can watch the previous video to understand how to create serializer, how to create URL py and API folder under the application. Now this is the create method that we write under the serializer.py. Once it is completed, we'll go back to the documentation. Under the documentation, you're going to find API guide. Under the API guide, we'll go to the views. And under the API views, we are going to find there are two methods under the API view. By default, API view work on the GET request. Now we'll copy this for GET and post. And now I'm going to go back again to the coding and I'll go back to views.py. And now we need to modify this file. To modify this file, we need to first paste the content, API view, get and post request. So this get and post request now we are going to use for this specific function. For the coder list, we are going to use get and post request. So inside the method, I'll modify few things. So here I'm going to write a code if request dot method is equal to get. This is the thing that I need to perform. So I need to retrieve all the data, store into the serializer variable, and then data will get processed. As many equal to true, there are multiple records are there. But if request dot method is equal to post, then what exactly? So when we talk about the post request, that time we need to first create a serializer variable. Here I'm going to create a serializer variable. And I don't want all the records now. I'm just looking for a very specific record. So here I'm going to write data is equal to request on data. Whatever the data has been sent by the user that we are going to save into the database. So it has been stored into the serializer variable. Now if that serializer is valid, then we are going to save that data, serializer.save. And then we are going to return a response. That response is nothing but serializer data. Has been written. But if any error is occur, the serializer is not valid, then we need to just handle it with the else part. In the else part, we are going to write return response. Instead of serializer data, we are going to return the error. So serializer dot errors. If the serializer is not valid, then it will return the. So this particular modification is required for the post method. Now we run the project python manage.py run server. Now we'll get a URL, copy this URL and paste into the browser. On the other tab and I'll paste the link. After that, I'm going Look for the coder list. You can find get and post request is been allowed along with the content that I'm going to add. If I do certain modification in the code, I'll go back to the code again. And under this API view, if I'm going to remove this post and save the code, I'll go back to the browser again and I'll just refresh this page. You can find we cannot post any kind of data. And here it allow only get request. So that post request is not been allowed. Go back to the code again. I'll make modification. So the post request is again added so that we can add a certain record. Now we'll go back again to the browser. And now again refresh the page. You can find get and post request is allowed. Now I'm going to add a record. So I just copied this, paste it here. First name is ABC. Then 12 years. This to post this data. You can find the record is get inside. Just refresh the complete page. You can find the data is get posted. Go back to code again. You can find that once we post the data, that time it get the code serializer. Code serializer consists of all the details that I printed on the terminal. What sort of data that I want to be inserted from the console. What sort of data that I want to post from the GUI. And one by one we can add a record. So this is the way that we can use get and post request in Serializer. In next video, we'll talk about put, patch and delete request. Thanks for watching this video.